She is startled to see a woman in her bed. She asks who the woman is, and what she's doing in her house. The woman says it's Diego's house. She says no. The astonished woman. She replies that the house is hers with Diego. The woman asks, "Your house with Diego?" She says Diego is her husband. Diego in the background screaming love. She replies, "Hi love." The desperate woman says he can't see her there, and hides with the cover. She says it's fine, but for her to explain herself later. Diego arrives at the room, the two greet each other and look at each other. He says he needs to go to the company that came up with an amazing proposal for him and that he had a meeting. She doesn't quite understand. He tells her not to count on him as he would be slow to come back and kisses her forehead. She asks, "Are you going on a trip?" He says no and asks to cheer him on. She turns her attention to the woman, in her bed wondering what's going on. She says "You're at my house," introduces herself saying she's Diego's wife, and asks what the woman is his. The woman says pleasure, then says she is Diego's fiancée. And that in his defense she didn't know that he was married, that he had said he was single. The woman says yes, saying that she doesn't live in Rio de Janeiro, but in Sao Paulo. She's what she's doing inside her house. The woman says she's there because it's their engagement anniversary, and that she wanted to surprise him. That they were about to get married, and traveled just to make this surprise. She says he doesn't have the meeting, that he's lying. The woman replies that apparently not. She asks how long they've known each other. The woman says that 3 years ago. She deduces that every time he traveled, it was to be with his wife. The woman says yes, and says that he told her that he was going to Rio de Janeiro to work. And she deduces that he came to be with her. She sighs and says yes, he's her husband. The woman proposes to them not to be sad, that they will fix it and that they can become friends. Without understanding, she asks, "Friends?" The woman, yes, to have fun, to hydrate them so they can relax and then they would think about what to do. She says she likes hydration, and she likes the idea of bonding, that it was better than them fighting. She says, "Can we come together?" The woman says clear, and takes her hand. The two of them combine like this and get together, and say one to other friends. They seal their friendship with a hug. They're both smiling and toasting. She starts to cry. The woman picks up a jar of cookies and asks her to look at it, trying to make fun of it, and says she's going to throw it. They both laugh. The woman tries to throw the cookie in her mouth and misses, then tries again. The two of them laugh. She throws a cookie into the woman's mouth and misses. Lots of laughter between the two. The woman gets it right. Woman is doing her makeup. She gives the woman a scare. They both laugh. The woman goes back to her makeup and asks her to look in the mirror to see what she thinks. She threatens to cry. The two laugh and hug. The woman says she's doing her best and gives some touch-ups. The two are seated with masks on their faces. She says she can't believe he did this to her. How can he fool her like that? The woman says that she is thinking the same thing and that she is very sad. She says she feels like crying again. The woman says no, they're there to relax. She says they can't relax knowing he did it and that he can't stop it. The woman says they'll figure it out. She says yes and that she already knows what she's going to do. The woman, "What are we going to do?" She says she has the locator of where he is. A red car arrives at a location. Diego comes down and goes to open the door. The two women are trying to hide in the area. Diego opens the door and out comes another woman, they kiss. Diego closes the car door hugging the woman and takes a few steps. He asks the other woman to wait for him to come back. She goes towards the third woman to beat her. The woman says she is not safe and asks for calm. The third woman, not understanding, asks what's going on. She asks who's the guy the third woman was with. The third woman replies that it's her boyfriend. She says he's her husband and fiancé to the woman next to her. The third woman says it can't be. The woman says they were deceived just like. The third woman didn't believe he did it. She says he did to her, he did to the woman next to him. Why wouldn't you do it with her? The woman asks if she's living a fairy tale. She tells the third woman to wake up. The third woman questions, you're his wife. She's. The third awkward woman apologizes that she didn't know. Before she explained herself. She tells them to skip this part, which she had already done with the other woman, and asks them to forget that he's mistaken all of them at the same time. She asks what they're going to do about it. The third woman says he's coming back. What are they going to do? She says that they are there to solve what they need to solve and that she knows what they are going to do. They then go to the woman's house and begin to prepare their plan. One of them explains to the others what each of them was going to do and asks if they understood. The others say they understood, and then they celebrate by saying that the plan was foolproof. Later, the woman says that she would put female hormone in the man's drink. She then blends the liquid in a blender and is very happy with it. Meanwhile, the man was taking care of some matters on his cell phone. The woman then takes the drink to the man and says she had prepared it for him. He thanks the woman and says that he was really very thirsty. He drinks it and tells the woman that it tasted good. He then asks her what she had put in that drink, but the woman said she couldn't reveal it, because if she did, it would lose all sense of the surprise she wanted to make for him. The man says that the drink was really good and thanks the woman for making it for him. Then he starts saying that he was very moved by it all. The woman sits next to the man and asks if he was very emotional. He says yes, says he was feeling things he'd never felt before. He says he was feeling something very different and then asks the woman if she will stay with him forever. She says that she couldn't stay by his side at that moment, as she had too much to do. He then says that it was very sad, that he couldn't be alone at that moment, because he was very needy for attention, and starts crying. She says that he didn't need to cry because he wouldn't be coming back soon, that he needed to leave at that moment because he needed to work. She then says goodbye to the man with a kiss. That time later she would tell. This makes the man very sad, and then he starts crying again. When the woman leaves, he pulls out his phone and calls his mistress. She asks what had happened in crying. Ali says that he was very emotional and that he needed company at that moment. He asks her to come to his house and she says she will be there soon. He then hangs up the phone and starts crying again. Later, the mistress arrives at the house and goes to the man. She sits next to the man. He asked what had happened. He said that he was very sad and that he needed someone to stand by him at that moment. She then tells him that she would get him a glass of water so he can drink it and calm down a bit. He tells her not to delay in coming back, and when she goes to the kitchen, he starts saying that he was very sad. He then proceeds to say that he didn't know what was happening to him. With this one, he had never felt that. He said he was feeling very sad and that he felt like no one wanted to be by his side. Meanwhile, the mistress was putting something inside the drink that she was going to give to the man. The mistress then walks up to the man and sits down next to him. She hands him the glass of water and he starts drinking. He senses something strange, but doesn't say anything. He then says that the water was very good and asks his lover how her friend was. She says that, unfortunately, her friend was very sad as she had discolored something very terrible. She said her friend had found out that her husband was unfaithful. The man then proceeds to say that he wasn't feeling very well and that his belly had started to hurt. He then quickly gets up and says he needed to go to the bathroom. She then tells him not to delay in coming back, and when he leaves, she starts smiling because her plan had worked. At that moment, she picks up her phone and calls another woman telling her that the plan had worked and that now it was her turn. Meanwhile, the man was having a lot of difficulties in the bathroom. Later, the other woman arrives at the house and then calls for the man and says that he was in the bathroom and that he could not serve her at that time. She then said that she was worried about him and that she went over to see if he was okay. He then asks her to get him something and she says she will get it. She asked the man where he kept it and he said it was in a drawer in the living room. She then takes a jar of cream and puts something inside it. The man asks her if she has already found what he had ordered, and so she says yes and hands the jar to the man. He says he'd be coming out of the bathroom soon and she says she'll wait for him while she laughs at the situation. Later, the man goes to the living room screaming. She then asked what had happened and a man shows her what happened. His hair was blue and he asked how he could get to his meeting like that. The other woman says that the shampoo the man had used must have been ruined and that, for this reason, his hair turned out that way. He then begins to wonder how he could make it to the meeting with that hair, but the other woman says she had a surprise for him. That makes him very happy and then they get up. She said she needed to blindfold the man and he asks if the surprise would be good for him. She said yes and then blindfolded him. He then said that he was anxious to know what was going to happen, that he had already forgotten what had happened to his hair. While the man couldn't see anything, she calls out for the other women and then the man asks what was going on. She told him not to worry about it. She was just finishing the surprise. At that moment, the other women arrive in the room and position themselves. The man realizes that someone else is there and asks what was going on. She said the surprise was that she had brought some friends to him. He gets excited about it and then asks if he could remove the blindfold. She says yes and then he removes the blindfold from her eyes. When he removes the blindfold from his eyes, he realizes that the other women were there and he is very surprised. They then begin to applaud the man and the woman asks him if he really thought he would be able to fool all of them for a long time. He said he could explain, but the woman says I didn't have an explanation here. He says that the one he really loved was the woman, but she said he was a very bad person. The woman then asks her friends if any of them wanted to stay with him after what had happened there. They say no and then she tells the man that he should leave and never come back inside him to say anything else. She tells him it's all over and asks him to leave. Very sad about the whole situation, the man leaves. When he leaves, they celebrate that everything had worked out and hug each other.